Hi, thank you for joining us for Archive Dive. I'm Katherine Austin, and I'm the curator for the Texas Archive of the Moving Image, or TAMI, a nonprofit based in Austin, Texas. Since 2008, our organization has partnered with the Office of the Governor's Texas Film Commission to bring old films and videotapes back to life. Our Texas Film Roundup program not only provides Texans with free digitization services for their films and videotapes, but also preserves and shares their uniquely Texas stories via our website, texasarchive.org. There you can watch more than 6,000 videos contributed by individuals and institutions from across the state. Archive Dive highlights the people and organizations behind the collections on view at texasarchive.org. In our chats with contributors about their materials, we discover more information about those videos and the Texans who made them. Tonight, we are joined by the fantastic Kent Cummins to watch highlights from his magical collection. Kent has been a practicing musician for more than 70 years. Beyond his work as a professional musician, he is also a teacher and motivational speaker. We have Kent with us via video call. Good evening, Kent.
Howdy, howdy.
Thank you so much for joining us. And as a heads up for anyone in the audience, if they have questions for Kent during our conversation, Team Tammy is monitoring the comment section. But before we begin tonight's program, Kent, I wondered if you might share your magician origin story with us.
Sure. My grandpa was the manager of the Buckhorn in San Antonio. And the summer of 1949, I was 6 years old. He gave me a little magic trick that was from their gift shop. And I loved that little magic trick, but it was a toy. It wasn't anything unique, really. And my dad noticed that I was going around showing it to people all the time, that I really seemed to like that magic trick. So for Christmas that year, he gave me an A.C. Gilbert Misto magic set. I have since learned it's called the exhibition set. It's the smallest. They probably cost $1.98 back then. But the A.C. Gilbert Company made the erector sets, chemistry sets, and magic sets because Mr. Gilbert loved magic. And when I opened that set Christmas Day, I said, wow, I'm going to be a magician. And I called myself Misto, the magician. And most little boys my age back then probably had similar experiences, and most of them grew out of it. But, I said, I want to be a magician when I grow up. And they said, you can't do both.
Prove them wrong. But tonight's program begins in Worms, Germany, not San Antonio. And Worms, Germany is where you were stationed for the U.S. Army. This 1965 home movie captures you and your wife, Margot, celebrating Christmas at the Tucanon Barracks. Let's roll the clip.
Yep.
And it's silent, so we can talk over it.
Yeah, there's Second Lieutenant Cummins. And Margot and I were married in June, and we got to Germany in November, I believe. That's our brand new car, a Volkswagen 1300 that I bought from the factory in Wolfsburg.
Oh, wow.
It cost me $1,300. In the States, it would have cost $500 more, but because I was picking it up at the factory, it was cheaper. And I was the Officers Club manager in Tucanon Barracks for a while. That's Tucanon Barracks, the sign. And of course, we didn't call it Worms, we called it Worms am Rhein. Our first Christmas together as a married couple, and we kept that decoration for decades, but it finally just crumbled to dust, I believe.
And I assume it was Margot behind the camera there at the beginning of you getting off the plane and getting in your car.
We had a little Bell and Howell movie camera, 8mm.
Mm-hmm.
And that Shredney, our pig that we saved money in, it was a present from her when we were dating. And at some point, I believe Margot enters the scene.
She
stage
does.
right. There's our first Christmas tree.
Did your family make home movies often growing up?
I beg your pardon?
Did your family make home movies often when you were growing up?
Yeah. I still don't completely understand the question.
I'm sure. Did your family make home movies often when you were
make
growing
home
up?
movies?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, no worries.
Not a whole lot, but Margot and I did have this camera, so it was ours.
Sure.
And we're in temporary quarters provided by the Army. That's the slanted roof and all that.
How long did you serve on active duty?
We had 4 years ROTC, 11 years active duty, and then I stayed in the reserves for 25 years so I could retire at age 60, which was 20 years ago.
And where else were you stationed besides Germany?
Vietnam during the Tet Offensive, Korea, which is where we found our daughter, uh, Fort Lee, Virginia, a couple times, Fort Dix, New Jersey, which is where our son was born, Fort Hood and it was still called Fort Hood back then, Fort Hood for just 30 days. Oh, and Fort Benning, Georgia, where I went to infantry officer basic course and airborne.
Very nice. Very cool. Well, our next video comes from your time in South Korea, as you mentioned, but rather than a home movie, it is a 1973 television broadcast for the American Forces Korea Network, or AFKN. Let's roll the clip.
Right.
Good evening, and welcome to Around and About, people, points, and places of interest.
Hi, I'm Mike Bernatazzi, and welcome to Around and About. My guest this evening is no stranger to the screens of AFKN viewers. You've seen him on Krakow several times. His name is Kent Cummins. Kent, welcome to Around and About.
Thank you, Mike.
How many times have you been on Krakow's now?
Oh, I haven't kept track exactly. About 15, I think.
Is that right? Usually you do magician tricks on
Right.
Krakow. You've got your costumes and so.
Not tricks, fantastic illusions, you know, miracles of modern-day prestidigitation and feats of magician tricks, right?
Tricks.
Right.
That's what I thought I said.
Every Saturday morning. That's right.
Every Saturday, yeah.
Except those that I'm not there.
We saw you juggling a moment ago. How long have you been doing that?
Just about 30 seconds, I think. That's right.
Now, I know you've written a book entitled Bungling Juggling by Kent Cummins. Here's a picture of it right here. And you were quite young when you wrote this and had it published, right?
Yeah, I was a teenager. I don't remember exactly.
Uh-huh. Is the book still in circulation?
Oh, yeah. It's into its fourth edition, I think. It's sold. You wouldn't see it in the normal bookstore. It's sold through special stores and mail order for magicians, clowns. Well, that's how Krakow happened to get a copy of the book, as a matter of fact. He had bought the book to learn a little bit about juggling, I think, before he met me.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, I had a chance to go through here before the show. I noticed it's written with a lot of humor.
yeah, well, the thing is, most jugglers try and juggle as many objects as possible and work on the really difficult stunts. There was one very well-known juggler that practiced for 9 years to perfect a particularly difficult stunt with pool cues and pool balls. And when he finally perfected it and put it out on the road, it bombed. Because although it was very difficult, it wasn't very entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
Now, on the other hand, you've seen some jugglers lately on some of the network shows that actually don't juggle more than 3 or 4 objects at the most, and yet they have a line of patter, or they juggle interesting things, like the guy that eats the apple while he's juggling. And these people are more successful with audiences because it's more fun to watch. So in my book, what I try to do is not teach people how to juggle lots and lots of objects, but how to juggle a few of them so that it would be fun for them to do and fun for people to watch.
And during the interview, both you and the host talk about your multiple appearances on AFKN, including on Krakow's Corner, which is the clown that you guys mentioned a few times. I'm so curious how American Forces Network broadcasts were made. Do you remember much about the production process?
What I remember is they had a studio, a typical TV studio of that era. And I would go on, I believe it was Wednesdays, and we would record the show. And we were allowed to occasionally correct mistakes and stuff like that. I mean, like that juggling thing at the very beginning. I don't think that's the first take because I probably dropped the balls nervously under the camera lights a few times. But Krakow was a magical clown. And so, he was delighted to have another magician because it was a weekly kid show and he was running out of things to do. And my son, Kevin, who was 3 years old at that time, he and I would go to the Hartel house where I worked, and we would watch it on television. So it was recorded on Wednesdays, and then we would watch it on Saturday mornings. And it was the first time I had ever seen myself on television. I had been on television before, but it had never been recorded. Right. And so I learned things, like I learned that I used my hands like a magician. I mean, it was kind of natural. And I also learned that I would do this a lot if I was wearing a tux with a tie. I had a big protruding Adam's apple. And because of that, I do not, even in my full tuxedo with cape and top hat, I don't wear a tie. I keep open collar.
Smart. You're talking about it being recorded. How did you get a copy of the program?
Dumb luck, probably. Krakow tried to get copies of some stuff, And I'm sure I don't have copies of, very many of the programs, but and I think it was like a 2-inch tape or something like that. Of course, I didn't have any way to play it.
Probably was, yeah.
So I never saw it until I heard about the roundup. And I was so thrilled to. I don't necessarily like my attitude being interviewed in that particular thing, like my crack about, I've been juggling for 30 seconds, which meant that's how long the teaser went.
Mm-hmm. It got laughs here in the office, so. But because it's like, do you even know if there was an official effort to save or like archive broadcasts by the American Forces Network, or is it very much just sort of like a personal sort of endeavor that Krakow saved one? And
we're talking 1973, and videotapes were reused over and over again. Even when things were recorded, they weren't necessarily archived, and certainly a clown kid show wouldn't have been an important archive for AFKN, I wouldn't think. But he was able to secure some of it, and like I say, he sent it to me after I was back in the States, and it's been sitting with my stuff for years until you all were able to record it. Digitize it.
I found this content. So we have another example from another collection from the Philippines network. That's also in just someone's personal collection that they just happen to have a copy of one show of a show that they did regularly on the network. And it's, I feel like no one was really saving those unless it was, you took the initiative.
It's wonderful to have those.
And it's such a unique part of broadcast history too. But during your military service, you were also involved with the United States Army Club Management Agency, a working relationship that produced magical promotional films like this one from 1974. Let's roll the clip.
Hello, I'm Major Cummins, and I'd like to discuss with you some of that financial wizardry that's known as budgeting. Some people think that budgeting is very difficult, that it's a very tricky kind of a thing. Well, I'd like to dispel any such notion with a little demonstration of just how simple budgeting can be. Let's say, for example, that I had, $6,000 in sales. $1, 2, 3, 4, 5, $6,000 in sales in this particular Army club. And let's say that my cost of goods sold is running about 50%. $1, 2, $3,000 for my food and my beverage cost. This would leave me as gross income $1, 2, 3, 4, 5, $6,000 left. Wait a minute, let's try this again with a different expense. Let's say that we had $6,000 worth of sales and that our labor costs have really been going up and that we were spending maybe even 50% on labor. $1, 2, $3,000 on our personnel costs, our labor costs. This would leave us for other expenses $1, 2, 3, 4, 5, $6,000. Maybe budgeting's kind of tricky after all. This is really a bit confusing. Tell you what, let's really come up with a fantastic program of events, an entertainment budget. Let's spend $1,000 on a floor show, and let's spend $1,000 on a band, and let's spend $1,000 on go-go girls, magicians, clowns, jugglers, and all kinds of strange entertainment. Hey, after a program like that, we'd still have $1, 2, 3, 4, 5, $6,000. And with that much money, we might as well go into our capital expenditures budget. Let's say that we needed to buy a baby grand piano, and that such a thing would cost us $1, 2, $3,000 for a baby grand piano. This would leave us, after the capital expenditure, approximately $1, 2, 3, 4, 5, $6,000 left to budget. By now you're probably beginning to think that I'm able to stretch my money. And that would be a pretty good thing for a club manager to be able to do, but of course it's just an illusion. Nobody can really stretch their money. Or maybe you even think, let's give it a try here, maybe you think I have money to burn. Whoa! No, that's an illusion too. Nobody really has money to burn. That's silly.
I don't think I'd ever heard of the Army Club before I saw your collection. What exactly does it do?
It's a country club. They had officers clubs and NCO clubs and enlisted clubs, and they were run by military back when I first went in. Eventually they were civilianized, and then many of them consolidated, so there's one club where military personnel could go, but they were very segregated by rank back then. And I love being able to see that particular tape, and there are a couple others that you digitized also. I think those were 1-inch tapes. I know they were also a size that nobody could play for me, so I didn't see them. I mean, I saw them when they were first, used, but I
Sure.
hadn't seen them in decades. And that trick is called the 6-bill repeat, and I think it's a great example of magic with a message, which has been my specialty. When people say, "What kind of magic do you do?" My typical answer is magic with a message. I don't just go out and do a magic show, but I'll use the magic in motivational speaking or in training. And this was a wonderful example of using it for training, because the trick itself doesn't necessarily tell everything that we're trying to teach the people, but it's a good visual example. If you spend a lot of money to make your club better, you're going to have more money in sales. And so that's the real teaching point. And of course, the trick keeps going on.
Well, that's a perfect segue to my next question was, we've seen in the past couple of clips how you've blended your passion and your talent as a magician with your responsibilities as an officer in the Army. And did you envision these two parts of your life intertwining in this way?
No, of course not. In fact, I tried to get into special services, which, actually does floor shows and stuff. But I found out that a junior officer in special services would be booking acts. They wouldn't have an opportunity to perform. And so when I got over to Germany and got settled, I thought, well, I could do shows for the clubs. That would be a fun thing for me to do and make a little extra money. And so I asked, because the officer's guide specifically said that officers were not allowed to push baby carriages, to carry umbrellas. I mean, there are all these things that officers were not allowed to do. And I didn't say anything about doing magic shows. So I had to ask the Judge Advocate General for permission to to do magic shows. And they said, wow, nobody's ever asked that before. But obviously they decided it would be okay. And so
it's the Air Bud rule of the bylaws don't say a golden retriever can't play basketball. But following your tours overseas, and I know you were talking about being stationed in the United States, also you moved to Austin to pursue an MBA from the University of Texas. And this silent footage.
The Army paid for that.
Oh, awesome! Yeah.
That was in many ways a payback for that year in Vietnam. And of course, the Army wants their officers to know stuff. To be, an MBA is a perfect thing for a junior officer. And so that's. I was born in Del Rio. My family was from San Antonio, but I didn't know Austin at all until we came for me to get my MBA.
Well, especially with your work with the Army Club, I assume because I know you were still active duty and then in the reserves. Following your MBA, that I can imagine your MBA would come in handy with the Army Club. But but at this point you're in Austin, and this silent footage captures a magic performance for local school children in 1978. Let's roll the clip.
Okay.
And we talked about this a little before we started the show, but do you know where this film came from? Because it looks almost like television footage. We work with so much television footage. That's what I assumed it was.
Yeah, it is quite possible that Ramon Galindo, my good friend, who probably made that costume for me, my original white tux was from Korea, but I think Ramon may have, when it fell apart, Ramon made it. And what I did here, I took a flat hat, and then I took a flat magic wand out of my pocket, and then I'm going to produce a flat rabbit out of the hat. So that's just a silly, funny thing that I used to open my show with. But I love the kids chewing gum and all of that. I mean, it's a wonderful clip because it shows the audience.
Well, tell us a little more. I mean, it makes sense that Ramon made your suit because he was a master tailor here in Austin. But tell us a little more about Ramon. We have Ramon Galindo's collection as well.
Yes, and I have my fantastic magic center. I live in Georgetown now, just north of Austin. And it's half of a duplex that nobody lives in. It's a museum, it's a research library, it's a cabaret theater, and I have got several shelves of Ramon Galindo materials because he was one of my very best friends in magic for many, many, many years. And as I say, he was a tailor. He was an award-winning filmmaker. He was an award-winning magician. He was an award-winning tailor. I mean, he made tailors for like Lyndon Johnson and for the Texas Band. And, I mean, the man was amazing and still really sharp. I took a little home video with my phone of him shuffling a deck of cards with one hand. And that was when he was 98 years old, I believe.
Wow.
And we posted that on Facebook, and of course it went viral. I mean, it's just, here's this old man doing this incredible thing that none of us young people could do. And I was still visiting with him until just shortly before he died, peacefully in his sleep at age 99.
I know, almost 100. Because he lived in Austin for a very long time, and his collection is incredible. Just sort of showing the history of Austin Aqua Festival, and all kinds of great stuff. Well, what role did magic assume in your life after you finished your military service? So, like, when did it become a full-time profession for you?
Yeah, well, when I was getting my MBA, my best friend and I started a little sandwich shop chain called the Sam Witch Shops. And that was an idea that we had when I was in Vietnam. My uncle's a professional cartoonist. He drew the cartoon Witch. And so we started those shops, and that's, I had like a lab for my MBA because everything they were teaching me, we were using in that business. And so that's how we got, how Margot and I fell in love with Austin. But then after a number of years, my partner called me and said, I've opened a shop that's losing over $1,000 a month. If you want to work in these shops when you get out of the Army, you need to get out now. And I had just made major, so it would have been, a good career move to stay in. But I was also going to be assigned to a club in Washington, D.C. My wife, Margot, says, I don't want to raise the kids in Washington, D.C., and I'm never going to see you. You're going to have to go in early and stay late, which is true. Let's call it a hardship tour. I'll just take the kids back to Austin. And I thought, no. So I asked the Army if I could get out. And fortunately, the war was over, and they were trying to get rid of a lot of, captains and majors. So I was able to leave active duty and go back to Austin.
When you've also taught magic for years.
Go ahead. I didn't answer your question. That was 1976. 10 years later, we sold the sandwich shops, and I became a full-time professional magician. That was January 1st, 1986.
Wow.
And my friend Chris Walden says,
magician ever since.
Yeah, my friend Chris Walden says, whenever I say full-time professional magician, fireworks should go off because I say it with so much pride.
They really should, especially with someone, a veteran of magic like you. But so, you've been a full-time musician since the 80s, and you've also taught magic for years, I know, starting the Fantastic Magic Camp for Children in 1993. And this 1997 educational film shows you leading a beginner's juggling lesson. Let's roll the clip.
Most people, when they're learning how to juggle, don't use scarves. They use balls or bean bags. You start with one ball in one hand. You find an imaginary spot. Ooh, it's a real spot. Okay, find an imaginary spot. You practice hitting it until you can hit it almost every time. You do that until it gets boring. Your threshold for boredom is amazing. After that, you try two balls in two hands, twice. It's boring. But you have variations. The next step, two balls in one hand. Whoa, to juggle two balls in one hand, you juggle them in a clockwise motion like this. Wait, for you that's counterclockwise, there we go. Well, for you that's, well, never mind, I'll use a digital clock. The important thing is to juggle them in your right hand. That means your other hand is left. If you juggle them in your left hand, your right hand would be left. That's not right. Questions? No. Good. Next logical step, three balls in three hands. I usually do this till the crowd bursts into applause. Thank you for that hand.
Well, it looked like you were about to say something before we started. I don't know if I cut you off.
Oh, I love that clip.
It's so great.
I'm still performing that routine, which is an original routine. The idea of juggling with a third hand hanging, off of your belt. And when I saw it, because again, I hadn't seen it in years. When I saw it, I thought, wow, I was so smooth. I mean, I really performed that well. I'm still performing it, but I'm losing my vision. I'm older, a lot older. And so it's not as smooth. I don't keep it going as long necessarily, but muscle memory, I can still do it. It was really fun to see it, probably when it was at its best.
I want to say, like, rough estimate, how many children do you think you've taught over the years?
Thousands. There's no question about it. In addition to Magic Camp, which I ran for 18 years, and it recently just celebrated its 31st summer.
Oh, wow.
They still bring me back to do shows and stuff, but I don't run it anymore. But in addition to that, we had after school programs in so many schools that I had a team of half a dozen magicians who would meet me once a week at what we called the Hogwarts Annex, my studio in Austin. And I would show them how to teach a particular subject that we were going to teach that week and give them their teaching supplies. And then each would go to a different school or series of schools during the week. So, and we also did the homeschool network, and there were churches and gymnasiums and twirlers wanted to learn, how to juggle.
Sure.
So, and I taught magic and juggling at UT for about 30 years through their informal classes programs.
We had a great question from Elizabeth in the audience wanting to know what's the weirdest thing you have ever juggled. I know later in this video you juggle rubber chickens, which was pretty weird. But maybe you have an even weirder thing to offer.
I do typically close my show by juggling 3 rubber chickens. And as far as I know, that's unique. There have been some Renaissance jugglers that juggled rubber chickens, but they made them into juggling clubs, and I'm using real rubber chickens.
Yeah, it seems that would be really difficult.
It's a little harder than professional juggling props. But the weirdest thing easily was in Vietnam during the Tet Offensive. I once picked up 3 hand grenades and juggled them.
Oh my goodness, Ken.
I left the pins in.
Oh,
I mean, I'm not
I
stupid.
would hope so. I mean,
and
still.
if the pin had fallen out, I would have run very fast. I was much younger then. But I was company commander of a petroleum operating company, and my sergeant was not happy with me.
No, I wouldn't say so. Oh my goodness. Oh, that's too much. Well, something else you say during that lesson is that juggling is not a competition of skill between you and someone else. It's about juggling better than you did yesterday. So to conclude tonight's program, I thought it might be fun to watch footage of you juggling from around 50 years ago. Let's roll the clip. What came first for you, magic or juggling?
Okay. Oh, magic, definitely.
Magic.
My mom probably took this. It's in front of our house, I think, on Acadian Thruway in Baton Rouge. And what I did to start was a 5-ball flash, which means each ball goes into the air once in a correct pattern and is caught correctly. And that's called a 5-ball flash. I couldn't keep 5 balls going, but I could keep 4 balls going and then 3 balls. And that's what as I drop one, then I keep it going. Oh, and I like this too. I think I'm doing that fairly well for a very young guy.
You are.
And that cane to flowers, not that cane to flowers, but cane to flowers and producing a cane are in my show today.
Wow.
And God, that was, obviously from looking at me, that was many, many decades ago.
You have great showmanship there, and I'm sure it's only improved since.
Oh, I hope so.
What do you enjoy about juggling specifically?
It's relaxing. And I tried to be an athlete. I mean, little boys are supposed to be athletes, right? But I was too little for football. Dad took me to baseball camp, and I learned that I had no talent for baseball at all. And I tried basketball, and I tried out for the basketball team in junior high school. And the coach said, see where you're sitting on the bench? You're always going to be sitting on the bench. Why don't you go get out of this and go take something you might actually be good at? And when I learned to juggle, I could do stuff that those football players couldn't do.
That's true.
So it made me feel good about myself physically. And that was when we started Magic Camp. we had magic, juggling, and puppets. Puppets are great for kids that are shy. And I was very shy when I first started back when I was 6 years old, but I could perform with puppets. And then juggling made me feel better about my physical skills. And magic gave me the encouragement to get up in front of people and present myself. So I wasn't afraid of doing a book report in high school, whereas most kids were terrified of it. So magic, juggling, and puppets each helped me in a different way when I was growing up. And that was what we decided to do at Magic Camp, is help a new generation of children. What we didn't realize is that it would become a model for inclusion. It hadn't even occurred to me, but as moms would call and ask if their kid with some special need could come to camp, we said, yeah, sure, it's a camp for kids. And so that's probably the most important thing I've done with my magic, is to start that camp and then guide it into a model for inclusion, because there are literally thousands of children whose lives have been improved just by being cared about, by being treated like they were okay instead of trying to fix them because of their problem. And now I have a disability. Where is it? Oh, there it is. My little button says I have low vision. And it's interesting because I was Mr. See It, the magician with a vision. And now I'm the fantastic Kent Cummins, a magician who's losing his vision. And I wouldn't wear the button on my magic costume because magicians are supposed to be all powerful, right? But this year I said, no.
Yeah.
Superman had kryptonite. A magician can have a disability and still perform. And so in some ways, I hope that inspires people.
Definitely. I find it very inspiring. But well, to wrap up, did you think much about preserving your professional work at the time? And like, how did these materials get saved?
I never throw anything away. I didn't know how saving those old tapes and films were going to be preserved, and some of them got lost and then found again. My favorite film, the first time I was ever filmed, was by my Uncle Jack when I was 14 years old, and he took a picture, 60 millimeter film of my doing the multiplying billiard ball trick. And that film got lost, and when I sent it in the roundup, whoever I talked to said, oh, and we've got this little 60 millimeter film. It's in really bad shape. We're just going to send it back to you. And I said, oh, please, I want that one more than anything. And you all put your best people on it. And now I can watch me doing sleight of hand at age 14.
Wow.
Because I never throw anything away. And the Fantastic Magic Center in Georgetown is dedicated to preserving the art of magic and to saving things that maybe nobody else has.
I feel like that's a perfect segue to my final question, which is, what value do you see in archiving personal film and videotape collections like yours?
Oh my gosh.
Both in terms of the professional value of sort of capturing, documenting your craft and how it's changed over time, but also the whole movies like you in Germany.
One of my best friends was Ramon Galindo, a professional photographer, among other things. And being able, and it's not just videos of me that I enjoy seeing, but seeing the history in ways that we wouldn't get to. When I discovered TAMI, I was just, I couldn't believe it. What? There are people that will just take your tapes and preserve them forever? And so, yes, of course, I'm not a millionaire, but I do, of course, try and support TAMI financially. I think the last batch of stuff I got back was 3 office boxes full of tapes and videos and films, and I got it back on 1 thumb drive. And the estimated commercial value of that digitizing was something between $8,000 and $10,000.
We consider it a public service, and I feel like you are also one of the few people, that's a repeat contributor that you figured out that it's like you can just break it up into batches. Though, I know we have our item limits for each roundup, but you figured out that it's like I can just keep coming back and just making them in different batches, which we welcome.
Yeah, I think this is the 3rd batch that I've sent in now.
And I'm excited just to see.
Plus helping Ramon Galindo's children find his stuff and get it turned in, which is equally important, more important in many ways because of the things he preserved.
Yes, we have boxes upon boxes of Ramon's things that we
I
got
know
through
you do.
Josephine.
I
So,
helped deliver it.
mhm. And some of it, is no doubt duplicates of stuff we already have, but there's no
Yeah.
doubt stuff that we haven't seen before. And we're excited about looking
No
through
question
that.
about
But
it.
well, thank you, Kent. We're so grateful that you shared this collection with us and our audience as a repeat contributor to the Texas Film Roundup program. And it was really a special privilege to talk to you tonight. I know everyone in TAMI is excited to see what other treasures we might discover as we process your most recent batch of materials.
Oh, I'm so appreciative that this is happening while I'm still alive to enjoy it.
That's great. Well, and if anyone enjoyed learning about these films, please consider sending us a tip. We take donations via texasarchive.org/support-us, or you can text Texas Archive to 44321. Good night, everybody.